the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I'm...
Hello! Back! Got it!
The Transformational Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Hyman.
You crying?
You play ball like a girl!
Are you crying?
And first pitch, crushing!
There's no crying! There's no crying in baseball!
Now, key to being a big league pitcher. I'm Teddy Powers! Just a bit outside.
Warm up. You're going in.
The 3-0. That ball was crushed. Readiness? Wow, that was ridiculous. Recuperation? Hot cover here. Conditioning? Yikes!
I guess there's only one thing left to do. What's that? Win the whole fucking thing.
You make sure they remember the night they played the Titans.
Be cool. Go Titans. Week 2 of the brand new intro. Shout out to my man, Coach Bowie Olson, Podcast Mike from the I Love Scotch podcast. If you haven't checked them out, go check those guys out. They started their episodes back last week. I haven't laughed that long or that hard in a long time. If you know those, if you listen to this and you know who Bowie Olson is or you know Mike, give them a listen, man, because as you're listening, you know what they're all about. So it just makes it that much more hilarious. If you have no idea who they are, listen to the podcast. You'll figure out who they are. It's the I Love Scotch podcast. You can find it anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify, you name it, they're on it. Go check those guys out. I don't know if they're doing it an episode weekly or what, but bi-weekly, or not bi-weekly, but every other week. I'm not sure what their schedule is, but just a lot of random topics. I gave Bowie some ideas the other day about some bracketology stuff. I told him I think him and Mike need to break down the Untold series on Netflix. Ranking out the different episodes. Shout out to those guys. I haven't watched Swamp Kings yet, but the Johnny Manziel doc was fantastic. Also, if you haven't seen the Bishop Sycamore BS High on HBO Max, check it out. That was I had no idea that story in its totality until the other day when I watched that, but wow. That dude's a total insult to what it means to be a coach. I'll just say that. So go check it out. Really good. That's an hour and a half well spent. So anyways, back on topic. So welcome to season 2, episode 7 of the Transformational Coaching Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you for spending an hour with us this week. We are currently in season 2, and we're in the middle of a series we're calling the Build Better series. Within that series, we've talked about building better hitters, building better culture, building better outfielders, building better base runners. Today, we're going to talk about building better pitchers. So it's kind of a off-season focused series that we're just kind of breaking down the different aspects of the game and talking about, kind of our philosophy on some things, why we do what we do at Trinity, why we did what we did at South, just kind of give you some of the why behind what we're doing. So that's where we're at. We're going to talk building better pitchers today. Got a couple quick announcements. Number one, thank you for all the feedback we got on the Building Better Outfielders and Building Better Base Runners podcast or episode. So a lot of my coaching guys reached out with not just like, hey man, thanks for doing that, that was great stuff, but hey, here's some things I learned, or here's some things that might help y'all, here's some things you can add to what you're already doing. So that's part of the reason why we do this. I've been saying for a long time we were going to do like a coaches space thing on Twitter, or some type of coach meeting publicly or whatever, where we can kind of just use a platform like this to throw ideas out there and bounce stuff off each other. That's why I love going to coaching clinics, because you always learn something. But hearing from coaches within our community who are listening, offering insight, offering drills, offering, hey, that's great, we do this, it's helped me out. It's opened some things up for me. So our guys are going to get better because of that. So shout out to all my coaching guys who do that. Shout out to the parents who've, actually, not even parents of kids I coach, but just parents in general have reached out and said, hey, man, this helped me with my 9U travel team, or, this helped me with my rec ball team or whatever. So I appreciate that. That's kind of, why we do what we're doing. I think I've said for a long time, our goal in life should be to leave the world better than we found it. This podcast, YouTube channel for me is a way where I can take the stuff in here, put it out there, and if it helps somebody in some way, whether it's you become a better coach because of it, you become a better parent, you become a better player, you become a better person, hey, we accomplished what we were trying to do. So that's that. Thank you to everybody who continues to listen, continues to support. This would be a good time to plug in somewhere around here. I need to figure out how to do like the little graphic things where I can like throw a like right here in the middle of my forehead, and you can like and subscribe. But if you haven't liked and subscribed the YouTube channel or the podcast, please go ahead and do so now. I'll be looking back on the analytics at exactly 6 minutes to see if any likes and subscribes or subscriptions happen. But that'll help the show out tremendously if you'll do that. Our podcast has a tremendous following. Our YouTube channel, not so much. I think we are almost up to double digits on the subscriptions there. So please do us a solid, do us a favor, give us a follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Some of the benefits of doing that, obviously, is you'll get real-time alerts when a brand new episode comes out. But outside of that, I'm not sure, but it does help the show out. So appreciate that. Before we dive into the content, I do want to, you guys won't hear this podcast episode until September 4th, because I've got the Building Better Practices is coming out tomorrow morning, but that I recorded last week. But, so kind of wish I could have, well, I don't wish this, but I wish I could have put a plug in on last week's episode, or added it to the end or something. But the baseball community and just community in Florence lost a tremendous guy in the last couple of days. If you're from here, you know who Jerry Lee is, Mr. Jerry Lee. Just a tremendous human being, tremendous supporter of high school athletics, Legion baseball, sports in general. I think he created the banquet for the Florence 1 Athlete of the Year. There's an award that Jerry Lee, you got to have heart award. He just was a tremendous guy who, he coached a lot back in the day, but he ultimately just loved the kids and loved whatever sport and loved our community. And he's going to be missed. He passed away a couple of days ago, and it's going to be a big loss for our community just because of who he was as a man and all that. So, I grew up, obviously, I played baseball at South Florence. I played for Post 1. And Mr. Jerry Lee was back in those days, he was like at every single Legion game, would work the concession stand, him and all of his Legion buddies would, obviously meet out there, and they were much younger at that time, and they would, watch our games, and were just tremendous supporters. So that was my first interaction with him. My dad worked with him a lot on fundraising and raising funds for some of the various things in town. I know my dad was heavily involved in raising money for Francis Marion, so Jerry Lee was all in on helping him with that. And Jerry Lee didn't mind asking anybody for $1 to support kids, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And the amount of dollars that have come into the various programs in our city because of people like him, the number of people who benefited is really astronomical. So he's going to be really, really, really missed. And I think one thing that just kind of sums up the type of guy that he was, I hadn't spoken to Mr. Jerry Lee. He was somebody I would talk to once or twice a year as I've gotten older. Would see, because he would always come to South Florence games, would try to once a year until he got sick. Him and Tony Jones, Mr. Tony Jones, were, two of our biggest supporters over there. But, hadn't talked to him in a while, and then I obviously got named the head coach over at Trinity. And I get a phone call one day, a couple days after I got got named head coach, and it was Mr. Jerry Lee. And he just spent about 30 minutes telling me how proud he was of me, and all the great things we were going to do, and offered his help. And that's just the type of guy he was. Like, I think sometimes in life we all kind of get very tunnel focused on what's going on with us, and I know I do this a lot, where I'm hyper focused on how can I be really good at my job, how can I be really good at my home life, how can I be really good at being a coach and developing young men and all this other stuff, that we oftentimes lose sight of like the things around us and other people's journeys and other people's accomplishments and stuff like that. I know I'm guilty of it, especially with people that aren't necessarily in my face every day. But he's not that, he's that type of guy who's like, man, I'll watch you grow up, and I know we haven't spoken in some time, but I just wanted to give you a congratulations and well wishes and everything else. And that was our last talk. I think we had made some plans, if he had gotten a little bit better, to try to catch a baseball game in the spring, South Carolina game in the spring, and all that. So we're not going to get an opportunity to do that, obviously, but we will find ways to honor his memory and keep him in our thoughts and as we move forward. So I just wanted to say that. I know to most people who listen to this, who are not from our community, you don't know who that is, but just a tremendous guy, and heaven truly gained a good one. So thoughts and prayers are going to be with his family and grandkids and all them as they go through this time. And he was a fighter, and I can't remember what form of cancer he had. I want to say it was throat. It came back a few times, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, the amount of fight that he put in over the last 3 or 4 years, he never quit fighting. So rest in peace, tremendous guy. And prayers, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. So that's that. All right. No more sentimental stuff today. So, all right. Brief intro into episode 6 of this specific Build Better topic, building better pitchers. Sorry, pitters. What is that? Anyways, so I'm going to preface all this by saying, I never claim to be an expert in things that I'm not an expert in. Okay. Things that I think I'm close to an expert in: base running, outfield play, approach, your hitting approach, things like that. I've never been a guy who said, I'm a great mechanical teacher of the swing. I'm a great mechanical teacher of how to pitch, how to throw strikes. I've never said those things. There's things that I think all pitchers should do, and mechanically, and we coach to those things, but I never go to a kid and say, hey, this is the only way you can hit. Hey, this is the only way you need to pitch. Okay. Because it's not, my philosophy on hitting and pitching is a little bit different than other people. So, that's that. I don't try to force anything down people's throat that I don't feel like I'm a 1,000% expert in. And the mechanics of pitching and hitting probably aren't exactly, they're going to be slightly different than what the common person thinks. But anyway, so I'll preface all that to say, pitching, I hired a fantastic pitching coach to deal with our pitchers at Trinity. And it's Brian Brown. No offense to anybody else, but him and Stephen Dill are the best 2 pitching coaches I know. If I could have both of them on my staff at Trinity, I would, but I can't. But anyway, so when it comes to like the mechanical aspects of things, those are the guys that I lean on to try to get, Brian specifically, to get our pitchers to where they need to be. But I do have a philosophy around pitching that I try to implement because it's important. And, our pitching foundation is built around a lot of things that I think, which also are in common with the things Brian Brown thinks. And, that's why I make a great team. I use people like him to make sure that I'm staying up to date on all the things we need to do to help our guys go from being throwers to pitchers. And that's important. So, while today will not be a lot about mechanics and you got to get here and you got to get here, it will be a lot about, the things that are important to building healthy arms, and then the things that are important to me for our pitching staff and the things that we like to focus on. Because the hope is like somebody will listen to this and say, hey, I never thought about that. I actually want to utilize that. I like that, whatever. Or you might listen to it and say, hey, man, love what I heard. Have you thought about this? And we're all going to get better if we utilize that this way. So that's what we're going to do. That's the intro to that. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is going to be the things that we feel are important to building healthy arms, and we'll transition into things that for our program, this is what's important. These are things we focus on. Here's why we do it. Here's how we do it. Here's how we measure it and all that. So, this first part is going to be really more for like parents than it is for anybody else. So I think here's the deal. I've coached a lot of really good pitchers. Your Aiden Palmers, your Dylan Weagles, your Luke Millers, your people like that. Okay. And there's been a lot more, but I don't want to leave anybody out. They're just most recent guys. So, those guys, for the most part, all went down a very similar path as far as, how we're going to get to where we want to be, how we go from pitchers or go from, a young thrower to a polished pitcher. Luke, he took a little bit different path than somebody like Aiden. And that's okay because they all try, all paths kind of ended back in the same spot. But that's a good example that there's not one way to do everything. Different kids are going to respond to different things. Different kids put an emphasis on different things. Different parents put an emphasis on different things. But the one thing that I do think is important, and the thing that, I think their journey showed that will help parents and players who are 10, 11, 12 years old now is the fact that there's no shortcuts in this stuff, man. There's no shortcuts. There's no magic potions you can take. There's no tricks. There's no magic Harry Potter balls you can throw. Like, there's no shortcuts. Like, if your kid wants to have elite arm strength, wants to be elite, wants to do all those other things, it's a process, okay? And as a parent, I see this so many times, all right? And it's very frustrating, especially now that I'm a head coach. Because for the most part, I've got really good kids and really good parents at Trinity that are totally bought into what we're doing. They're following the process to a T. You can look at the weight rooms on Mondays and Wednesdays and see, okay, we've got a lot of people drinking from the same water hose here. But there's some that have chosen not to even cut the water on yet, and that's fine. But, it's frustrating when you try to get people on a process that works. It's been proven to work. You've got example after example of people who do it right, follow the process, and look where they are. And then you have other people who say, well, I'm going to do it this way because I know better, and, this way is going to be a little less strenuous, and, my kid's going to go from throwing 72 to 87, in 3 weeks by following this other program. It is what it is. I'm actually not talking about anybody specific. I'm just like culmination of examples over the year of people who are not baseball people who've got it all figured out. And it's okay, because sometimes as a coach community, we bring this upon ourselves because instead of learning, instead of, reaching out to people that know better than us, that are better coaches at different aspects of the game to try to help grow our knowledge and get us there so we can then turn that into helping our kids and helping our parents, we just get complacent and say, well, we just won't worry about that. And that's our fault as coaches. I don't do that. My coaching staff doesn't do that, but some people do, and it's okay. You really don't have a leg to stand on when you're complaining about people not following the process and all that if you're not investing in yourself to be able to deliver a great process for your kids. So, sorry, got off on a tangent there, but the main overview there that I want you to take from this, the main point I want you to take from that is there are no shortcuts. You can't drink a magic potion. There's no magic Harry Potter balls, magic tricks, all that other stuff that you can use to go from throwing 80 to 95. Okay, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be incremental growth. It's going to be incremental bumps in velo and all those other things. And it is what it is. If you're not bought in on the process, you're not going to get there. There's some people who come out of the womb and they're going to throw 103. Okay, that's like 0.0001% of the population. Everybody else, you better hop on a process. You better be committed to it if you want to be great. Okay, so for me, what's important in terms of building healthy arms? Okay, and helping us go from a kid who throws 68 to a kid that can throw 89, 90, 91, 86, whatever. Okay, and for starters, I'm old school in this. My coaches are old school in this. Long toss is important. Like, our guys got to be long tossing. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, God, another guy who's going to talk about long toss. It is what it is. Okay, long toss works. Look at Hall of Fame pitchers. Look at the guys that are dominating the game today. They all are really good at long toss. And long toss programs look different depending on where you go. We're about to start our guys up on an 8-week long toss program that'll go 2 days a week. Maybe 3 days a week. Some people prefer to do it 5 days a week, and you're mixing in intensity and, today's going to be a pull down day. Today's going to be a stretch out day. It really doesn't matter what that looks like as long as it's being done. There's a lot of people who say, I'm also not a lot of people, but to me, like, I'm a big fan of, like, I don't think people should really have a lot of downtime from throwing. Some people say, well, we're going to shut them down for 3 months. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And that's fine. For me, I don't think that works. I think anytime you take an extended break from throwing, you end up losing everything that you worked hard to build up. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym 3 days a week for 6 months, you're getting really strong. You take 2 weeks off, you're going to lose a lot of what you gain. So it's, that's just the battle that you have. It's the battle you have to fight, but it's something, if you want to be elite, you just have to do it. Now, to be clear, you should have downtime from mound time, right? You should have a break from competitive innings. Every parent should have a plan in place. Every coach should have a plan in place on how we're going to have a kid throw, maybe if he's this age, he's going to throw 50 competitive innings in a year. If he's this age, we're going to build him up to 60, 70, 80 competitive innings in a year. There's a dude named Josh Rudd on Twitter. He's real big on arm care. Check him out. I think he's the one who, he didn't come up with this, but I think he's got some stuff out there around, hey, if you're this age, you should throw X amount of competitive innings. If you're this age, you can bump up to this. We don't follow that to a T, but we do have a plan in place for all our pitchers for the fall, for the spring, for the summer, on how, somebody like, an Aiden Palmer, when he was with us, was like, okay, he started at 50 innings a year. And then, his junior year came around and he was a 60 inning a year guy. And then we bumped him up to 70 innings, and it was at that point that you would say, okay, he's thrown enough competitive innings, through the spring or whatever, to where, and you always were managing that, so if you ever watch somebody like Aiden throw early in the year, you would notice, man, Aiden would only throw 3 or 4 innings. It was all part of keeping him, from a inning standpoint, fresh and all that. So, I love it when I'm going through this podcast and I randomly go down a rabbit hole, and then I get to the end of that rabbit hole and I can't remember where I was going. That just happened. So, I think, okay, yes. So I was talking about the whole, like, taking a break from competitive throwing, but not taking a break from throwing. So that was kind of the gist there. We're firm believers in, if you can throw all year, throw all year. It doesn't have, there's different levels of effort, and long tossing, keeping your arm opened up and stuff like that. It's totally different than getting up there and throwing, travel ball every weekend for 52 weeks a year, right? So nothing wrong with continuing to throw throughout the year, especially if you're following a throwing program and all that, which we will do. So the next thing is that's important to building healthy arms is your weight and your core strength programs. So again, you look at some of the best pitchers that I've ever coached, they were strong and they were committed to the weight room on top of their throwing programs. They didn't say, well, I got a really good throwing program, so I can skip the weights. No, they understood that these things go hand in hand. Like, I'm long tossing, I'm doing these throwing programs and doing things right. I've got to build my core strength up. I got to build my lower half strength up and all that. So, we were fortunate at South to have Sean Armstrong there. So our pitchers, our players in general, were on a great strength program. He was kind enough to write that strength program up for me, and allow me to take that strength program to Trinity, which was awesome. So our guys at Trinity right now are doing the same exact things our guys at South were doing, which is only going to pay dividends. And we're really pounding this idea that strength training, core strength is extremely important, and we've got to be in that weight room every single day. We've got to be doing the things right, putting the right things in our body as well. If we're doing that on top of long tossing, we're going to start making really good. We're going to start seeing gains, and our overall arm strength is going to be going up, right? Or not just our strength, our arm health. That's what I meant to say. So that's that. If you're not doing a program, some type of strength program, get on one. There's good strength coaches out there, man. The internet is a great thing as well. You can find reputable strength programs for pitchers if you just look. I'll be more than happy to put you in contact with somebody that I know. Obviously Sean Armstrong's the best in the business, and in my opinion. I'm sure he would be willing to help some people if you wanted to put something together, or if you want him to put something together for you. So that's that. And then the last important thing about building healthy arms, your flexibility and your stability. So this is very, very important, actually, because what you start seeing when guys are lifting weights that don't lift weights a whole lot. You see the flexibility issues that we have and stability issues that we have. I'm seeing it right now. And that's okay, but it's got to be something it's a three-headed monster: long toss, throwing program, weight and core strength, and then flexibility, stability. If you've got the first two but don't have the third one, you're going to have more injuries. You're going to pull more muscles. You're going to have just a lot of bad things happening. Then that's going to translate into your throwing mechanics. You're not able to get to the point that you're trying to get to because you're not flexible enough. You don't have the stability in this area of your body. That'll translate into your weight program, your strength program, because if you're not limber in the hips, you're not this, you're not that, your body's going to compensate for it when you're moving heavy weight, and you're going to open yourself up to injury. So, again, flexibility, stability is something that has to be worked on with the same intensity and the same focus that you work on the other things. You can't lift 3 days a week, long toss 2 days a week, and then never stretch. Never work on, use your bands, stuff like that. I mean, we're really big on J bands, and really big on dynamic stretching and then static stretching afterwards, and stuff like that, because, it helps get us in the spots that we need to get in to be able to generate separation and things like that. It also helps for recovery, right? Recovery is huge. So many people, especially younger people, they don't put the same emphasis on recovery that they put on like a warm up and actually, strength building and stuff like that. It goes hand in hand. Like you can't be really good at a strength program and not really good at the warm up and really good at the recovery. You can't really be good at strength but not be good at nutrition, right? It all goes hand in hand. So, when we look at, again, this overall picture of how do we build healthy arms, strong, healthy arms, long toss / throwing program, weight and core strength program, flexibility, stability, and your recovery / nutrition. All that stuff is extremely important. Those are the 4 pillars that you really should be. If I could build a healthy arms program, those are the 4 pillars I'd be building on. Again, going back to this idea that there's no shortcuts, magic potions, all that other stuff. There's a lot of people out there that are going to try to sell you on velo, and here's how you can bypass all that to get there. Take these balls, throw these balls, do this, do that, inject this into your body. It just do it naturally, man. Like, one thing you normally don't see is guys who do it naturally. When I say natural, I'm not talking about like steroids and stuff like that. I'm just talking about the 4 pillars we're talking about here. Those guys who do it naturally, Is their progress slightly slower? Sure. All right. But do they get to the same spot? Yes. And a lot of times they get there safer. And that's the most important thing. You're seeing a tremendous rise in Tommy John and all this other stuff. And I can't help but think that a lot of that comes from the fact that people are throwing harder earlier and they're not doing it naturally. They're not doing it as their body progresses to be able to handle all that. They're doing it in ways that, hey, if we do this, throw these balls, if we do that, we can be 12 years old throwing 85. And if we're 12 years old throwing 85, by the time we're, 18, we're going to be throwing 97. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong way. I'm just saying that there's a consistent theme here as you look across the baseball community and you see more and more arm injuries. Some of it, yes, due to overuse, no doubt. A lot of irresponsible people coaching kids at 9, 10, 11, 12. No doubt about it. But I do think some of it is people trying to, because we're in such an arms race to see how hard we can throw the quickest, people are bypassing that natural, like your body's got to grow, your body's got to hit this, your body's got to do these things, your arm has to do these things before it can even handle throwing 96 at 14. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm going to say about that. Just don't try to cheat it. There's some good pitching coaches out there that do it the right way. There's some that, in my opinion, don't do it the right way with everybody. So that's all I'll say about that. But and that's, again, let me backtrack. Probably shouldn't have said that. Everybody has a different philosophy, so everybody does things differently. I think I prefer to take the safe route when we were talking about arm health, and from just a cutting corner standpoint and trying to get somewhere at 14 instead of naturally doing it and getting there at 16. I don't like forcing that. And I think the greatest example that I have is Aiden Palm. And Aiden is a kid who did everything the right way, 1,000%. And people say, well, coach, by him doing it the right way, he cost himself a D1 scholarship and he did all this because, when he hit his, peak, which he still hadn't hit his peak yet, he was a rising senior when he hit 93 for the first time. Before his junior year, he hit 87, 88, right? And he was a left-handed pitcher, and still, to plenty of shock to me, a lot of people looked at him and said, well, he doesn't throw hard enough, okay? Even though he's 6'4" with extremely projectable frame. But then all of a sudden he hits 93 going into his senior year, and everybody's on board now. But it's a little, whatever. But he did it the right way. He was committed to his program. His arm is in the health. His arm health, he's set up for long-term success because of all he's poured into his arm and his process for the last 7 or 8 years. Okay. And it'll be interesting to see, as he progresses through the game, how high he takes it, how far he goes, and how healthy he remains throughout that because of the foundation he's built. So, I had somebody one time say, man, y'all did him a disservice because, y'all didn't send him to these people or whatever. I'll never believe that. But anyway, so he's an example of a guy who did it the right way. He's an example of a guy who's got a tremendous future, and the foundation from an arm health standpoint is there to go really, really far. Okay. So those are things that are important to me. Those are things I believe for building healthy arms. Long toss, strength program, flexibility and stability, and then, putting some emphasis on your recovery and your nutrition. All right. So as far as just coaching goes, we're going to transition into what's important for us. What are the things that we focus on? And I've got about 4 things here that, they're not mechanical. Well, one of them is mechanical, but outside of that, this isn't going to be, hey, if you hit this point and you get here with this angle. It's not what this is about. This is about if you're a 9-year-old coach, if you're a 10U coach, and your guys are about to start kid pitch, These are just some things that honestly should be the foundation, in my opinion, that you're building everything on. Not mechanics, just mindset, how we're going to approach pitching, how we approach defense. As a coach, as a high school coach, more and more kids show up to us and they have zero idea about this part of the game. They're talented, but they lack here, so their IQ's low, their understanding of the game is low, their understanding of how to play team baseball is very low. Okay? They've been like hammered on your individual stats, accolades, and everything else, and mechanics, and not enough about just how to be a baseball player, how to be a pitcher, how to think. They need somebody thinking for them. Like, we've got to be better at the lower levels, and like these are some ways that you can do this. Here's some like tangible things your kids can take away if you'll listen to this and then say, okay, I'm really going to hammer home that. So the first one is the strike method. Okay. And strike came from a guy named Coach Justin Deemer. I've talked about him a lot. He's one of the best in the business in terms of coaching high school athletes, in my opinion. So strike is much like the base. Strike is to pitching and defense what base 2 is to offense. And if you don't know what base 2 is, I did a base 2 podcast in season 1. Go back and check it out. I don't have it on the YouTube channel, obviously, because I just started that. But if you go back, listen to the podcast, I think it's base 2, how we generate momentum offensively. It's a great podcast, one of the better podcasts I've done, honestly, because base 2 is something I've gotten very comfortable about talking about, and it's something that while it was somebody else's, they came up with it, we've tweaked it to kind of make it our own. So strike is the same thing. And strike, what it is an acronym. Okay, it's STR1KE. Okay, and we throw it up on a board and we chart it. Okay, and I'm going to break down what everything stands for, and this should make sense. So the S in strike stands for shutdown inning. The T stands for 13 pitches or less. The R stands for retire the first batter. The 1 stands for 1, 2, 3 inning. The K stands for strikeouts. And the E stands for end the inning with 2 outs. That is the strike method. Now, what does all this mean and how do we utilize it? So, for me, strike is really important because it actually does a couple of things. Number one, it gives us, our pitchers and our defense, tangible goals every single inning on, if we do these things well, we're going to have a better chance of winning. Okay? Offensively, what does strike do for us? Well, if I know that defensively we're going for shutdown innings, we're trying to throw 13 pitches or less, we're trying to retire the first batter, we're trying to have a 1, 2, 3 inning, we're trying to get strikeouts, we're trying to end the inning with 2 outs, then if I know that defensively that's what we're trying to do, then then offensively it gives me something for us to attack against, right? If I understand that the coaches on the other side are managing their pitch counts by trying to hold their guys at 13 pitches or less, every time we foul off another ball, that's a positive. If I know the guys on the other side of the field are trying to get the first batter out because they know if they do that 70% of the time, run expectancy of the other team goes down 60%, then what am I trying to do? I'm trying to find a way to get that first guy on, right? If I know the other guys when they get 2 outs, they're really focused on ending the inning, then as an offensive guy, I'm doing everything I can to extend the inning. So they kind of work hand in hand. As far as and that's how we utilize, the strike method was originally designed just for pitchers and defense, but we took that from Coach Deemer and expanded it a little bit to now we found ways to teach that offensively as well and teach that, okay, here, so anyways, that's that. So let's talk about each individual component of strike. So the S, again, stands for shutdown inning, and shutdown innings are very, very important. I'll hear Coach Brown, our pitching coach, say all the time, hey, we need a shutdown inning here. And that's not just words. It's not just words on a sheet of paper. This sounds like a great time to say, hey, guys, we need to shut down it, right? That's not how we use it. So, a shutdown inning is anytime we score runs in the bottom half or the top half of an inning. A shutdown inning is we hold the opponent to 0 runs in the next half inning, right? Whether that's the top, if we score in the bottom of the third, we want to hold them in the top of the fourth. If we score in the top of the third, we want to hold them in the bottom of the third. Again, if you've heard about the Base 2 podcast, we talk a lot about momentum. Shutdown innings defensively and as a pitcher are massive for momentum, okay? Because, if we score a 3 spot and we can get that team to go 3 up, 3 down, or, not score a run the next inning, and then we tack on more runs, we're just expanding our lead and we're gaining positive momentum, and we're making that hole deeper for them to climb out of. So shutdown innings are huge. This is one thing that I'm like, hey, if we could execute this 100% of the time in a game, we would never lose. You'd never lose because the other team would never score. They would never score following a score for you, which means if you were losing, you're probably going to end up winning. If you're winning, the lead's going to continue to grow. So shutdown innings are huge. That's one metric we shoot for 100% of the time. 100% of the time we score, we want to try to have a shutdown inning following that. Now, the reality is you're not going to have it 100% of the time, but having it in the right time is huge. So that's what a shutdown inning is, and that's the significance of it. So the T, 13 pitches or less. Okay. Now, 13 pitches or less in an inning is tough. Okay, and I'll put some numbers to it. The best pitchers I've ever had as a coach average 15 to 16 pitches per inning pitch over their career. And those numbers were higher early in their career, and they got lower as their career progressed. So, for instance, somebody like Aiden Palmer, he averaged right at 16 pitches an inning his junior year. He averaged 17 pitches an inning his sophomore year. His senior year, he averaged 15.2 pitches per inning, right? So, Dylan Weigel averaged 17 pitches per inning his junior year. His senior year, 15.8. Luke Miller, 17.7 pitches per inning his junior year. He dropped that a full pitch per inning his senior year. So you think about, what does that do for us, right? So somebody who's able to drop one pitch per inning over the course of a year, right? They have more pitches to work with as you get deeper into the game, right? Which is good. I mean, if you have a dominant arm on the mound, guy who's really put it together, has a great program, has a good foundation, you get a guy like Aiden Palmer, 15 pitches an inning, he's going to be pretty daggone good, because at 15 pitches an inning over 7 innings, that's going to be 105 pitches. They can get 110 in the game. But my point to all that is, as you keep the pitch count low, the offense has less opportunities. That guy can go deeper into the game. So it's a good thing. We shoot for 13 pitches or less on average at 35%. That's kind of the goal. And if you look at kind of our numbers over the past 5 years, not 5 years, the last 2 years when we started actually working on this stuff, and putting a focus on this stuff, we normally were around 38 to 40% of our innings were 13 pitches or less. And again, the tangible benefits there, obviously your pitcher can go deeper in the game, but when you're only throwing that many pitches an inning, you're doing a lot of other things really well. As far as first pitch strikes, and you're probably only throwing 3 or 4 pitches to each batter, and that just all translates really well when we start talking about momentum and keeping guys off base and playing good defense and stuff like that. So 13 pitches or less, we shoot for that 35% of the time. It's not an easy number to hit. In fact, this year at Trinity, I had, honestly, for the first time in a long time, I had a pitcher this summer who actually averaged 13 pitches or less, and that was James Wyatt Arthur. He was first pitcher I'd had in a long time who was at 13. Well, he was a little above 13, but that's the closest we've been to 13 in a long time. Like you said, because most pitchers are going to be 15 to 16 if they're really good. So, and that's why we put the 35% goal on that, because it's not something that's going to happen all the time. All right. So the R in strike, retire the first batter. Okay. And this is huge. When you look at run expectancy, it goes down significantly when you get the first out of the inning, right? If a guy gets on first with no outs, his odds of scoring are like 64% according to the book. And that's about right. If he gets to second base with no outs, that number goes up to like 80% in the high school game, right? So by us getting the first guy of every inning out, he's a big one, because we know with one out and a guy gets on first base, that number's more like 32%, which is still high, but it's not as high as like 54%. It's 20% less. So 70% is the goal there. Get that guy out 70% of the time. If you have a really elite pitching staff, a really elite pitcher, that number a lot of time, like I've seen that number get as high as 80%, but that's not going to be everybody. But your really good pitchers understand the value and how momentum-wise it cuts into momentum when you can get that first out. Because then it's like, okay, first out, okay, even if I walk the next guy, we're still a double play away, will get us out of it, whatever. Whereas, if leadoff guy gets on, then somehow he gets a second, it just ends up, it can be a mess. So if you want to control momentum, get the first guy out. And again, for young pitchers, the absolute worst thing you can do with the first batter of the inning is walk that guy. Okay, so when you walk a guy in the high school game, especially the leadoff guy, he scores about 40% of the time. And at the younger levels, it's more than that. I think at one point when I was coaching travel baseball, back when my kid was 12, my oldest kid was 12, that number was like 80%. If you walk the first guy, or the leadoff guy got on, he was going to score like 80% of the time. It was some astronomical number. And I was looking at our stats at South earlier, and I think if the leadoff guy got on via walk, he scored like 42% of the time one year and 38% of the time the other year. So luckily we didn't have a lot of leadoff walks. But so that's significance of retiring the first batter. The 1, 2, 3 inning, our goal for that's 30%. Obviously, 1, 2, 3 innings are good. Kill momentum, keep pitch counts down. Well, they don't just kill momentum, but they stop momentum from even starting. So that's good. Your really good guys are going to be closer to 40% of their innings will be 1, 2, 3 innings. Now, 1, 2, 3 innings sometimes are misleading, because a 1, 2, 3 inning is a total team effort normally, unless your guy goes out there and strikes out the side. But I mean, you're depending on people to play defense, retire the first guy, and all that other stuff. So, that it is what it is a team effort. But again, it's like the positive that it's like, okay, guys are making plays, guys are throwing strikes, people aren't barreling baseballs all over the park, so that's a positive. And 1, 2, 3 innings to keep guys off base. They keep teams from generating a lot of momentum, which is good. So strikeouts can be a little misleading. That's what the K stands for. Coach Brian Brown's not a big believer in, obviously strikeouts are important, but they're not the end all be all. I think at Trinity, he said, if you look at what we did this summer, we struck out 20% of the batters that we faced. You look at what we did at South, where we had a really elite pitching staff. We struck out 40% of the outs that we faced in the season over the last 2 years. And that was with an elite staff. So, both ways play is the point. Our team this summer played for a championship. We only struck out 20% of the guys. You're putting much more emphasis on your defense to make plays at that point, which we're really good at. But your elite staffs are going to strike out 40%. And strikeouts can be kind of like a, momentum, just you're not touching this. It can be kind of an attitude thing. It can be kind of a swagger thing. So they're not bad, but sometimes we can overemphasize the importance of strikeouts. I like contact guys just because strikeouts get you deeper into your pitch count, right? Aiden Palmer, as good as he was, struck out, the single season and career strikeout leader at South. He was probably going at least three pitches deep on every guy because he was going to strike out a lot of guys. Very rarely did somebody, he throw one pitch, one out. It happened every once in a while. But I can say being on the other end, especially as you get down the line later in the season, you kind of you prefer to see some of those innings where it's like, oh man, he threw one pitch and got it out, two pitches got it out. Okay, we had a 7-pitch inning there and didn't strike anybody out, just because it keeps the pitch count down, and then it keeps not the wear and tear, but anytime we don't have to go deep into the pitch count, that's positive. I used to love the games when Mason Lynch would get up there and pitch. He'd throw like 71 pitches in 7 innings, strike out 2 guys, and we win the baseball game like 5-0. I mean, it was awesome. But so that's kind of strikeouts, and it's part of strike. We don't live and die by the strikeout anymore. So, it's not as huge other than it is somewhat of a swagger attitude thing. Like, yeah, okay. It can definitely kill confidence, which is good. So the E in strike is going to be end the inning with 2 outs. And this is one. So for me personally, okay, the 3 most important things on this strike in the strike method for me are shutdown inning, retire the first batter, and end the inning with 2 outs. Okay, those are my 3, I really coach hard to those things. And offensively, I coach really hard to those things as well. Like, somebody scores, let's make sure we put up a run. Let's find a way to get the first batter of the inning on, because I know if we get him on, we got a really good shot of scoring. And then offensively, 2-out RBIs, or extending the inning with 2 outs are massive for generating positive momentum for your defense. I mean, you think about how demoralizing it is as a pitcher. When you got a guy in scoring position, you started the inning with a guy in scoring position and you get to 2 outs, you've been working your ass off. You got a 2-2 count. You throw a good pitch, he hits a nubber over to second baseman, and that dude scores. It's demoralizing, right? It sucks. You work so you're 1 pitch away from getting out of that, and something happened, and they ended up scoring. It's tough. So, ending the inning with 2 outs as a pitcher and a defense is massive, because it just gives you so much positive momentum, and it gives you so much especially just gives you momentum going into hit now. It's like, man, heck yeah, we got out of that. We're good to go. And anyways, end the inning with 2 outs. The first go around, the first time we get 2 outs, we want to retire. We want to end the inning right there. Because just weird stuff starts happening when you go. My least favorite thing is this. We go, there's got to be a stat somewhere. And Game Changer has a bunch of really good stats now. And you can go back and study stats for, look at advanced stats on Game Changer and find out a whole heck of a lot. But there's got to be a stat somewhere, and I haven't found it, about how many times a guy gets walked after you get the first 2 outs of the inning. How many times does that guy score? Because I feel like every time we get the first 2 outs of an inning and we walk the guy instead of getting out of the inning there, that guy scores. Swear to God, it happens 100% of the time. I know it doesn't, but there's got to be a stat somewhere. I'm sure we could do some advanced analytics somewhere in the professional game or the college game and figure out that. But the important thing is for your younger guys, especially when you get 2 outs, go ahead and find a way to get it done. Don't walk that guy. Don't make an error there. The minute a guy gets on base with 2 outs, wonky stuff just starts to happen. So that's that. And that's the strike method. So again, shutdown inning, 13 pitches or less, retire the first batter, 1, 2, 3 inning, strikeouts, and end the inning with 2 outs. So the way that system was designed by Coach Deemer, and again, that's all, the strike method and base 2. If you want it straight from the horse's mouth on what he does, it was in his book that he created, One Pitch Warrior. You can still get it on Amazon. It's $22. It's one of the best reads that I've ever had. It's short. The font is big, so you don't feel like you're reading a massive book. But One Pitch Warrior, and you can kind of hear it straight from him, what this system did for him and all the wins and how it set his guys up for success and all that. But that strike It was designed to be a scoring system. So each thing was kind of like given a point if you did this, and then at the end of the game, if you scored X amount of points, like your percentage of winning went up this amount or whatever. I'm not good at math, so we don't use it as a scoring system. We use it as a mental checkpoint for here's the things that we want to, the tangible things we want to do every inning. And if we do these things really well defensively and on the mound, it's going to put us in a really good spot. Okay. All right, so strike method, that's kind of our defensive pitching philosophy. That's what we do there. A couple other notes. Strike percentage. Strike percentage is really important, and it's something that we spend a lot of time focusing on. And within strike percentage, there's a couple things that I like to talk about. But before we get into that, for us, we put a goal on our pitchers of 65% strikes. And some people would say, well, what do you call a guy that throws a lot of strikes? BP. Yeah, if they're not well located strikes. So we put a lot of emphasis on being around the plate 65% of the time. We're going to pound the zone, hit our spots, and let our defense play. You think about a great high school team fielding wise, they're going to field about 950. That number goes up as you progress through the game. But, our guys at Trinity, one of the best fielding jobs I've seen was this summer. This guy's fielded 970 in the high school game, which is really good, really good. But for us, we know, okay, if we're throwing strikes, we got a good defense behind us, we're going to have a shot. And so I think you got to put a massive emphasis. You got to put a number on it. And, for us, we talk about these percentages. Hey, man, we talk about the strike method. We talk about what was our strike percentage. We keep it all in a spreadsheet. It's something we review post game, not necessarily the day of, but we might briefly say, "God, just didn't throw enough strikes tonight." We were pitching from negative, from non-positive counts. Like we were giving them a lot of plus counts, whatever, because our strike percentage was 52%. There's a big difference between 52% and 65%. Trust me, in terms of how many plus counts hitters are going to have throughout the game. So the takeaway there is if you're a young coach, especially of a young team, man, I cannot overemphasize the importance of strikes. If you threw nothing but fastballs and you're around the plate 65% of the time, you would win a tremendous amount of games. But what do we do at the young levels? We want to throw curveballs and we want to, do all this other stuff instead of just saying like, let's focus on getting the thing over the plate, right? I can't tell you how many I've watched like 9U, 10U games. You can tell there's like zero emphasis on, the little things like, man, just be around the plate. There's a lot of emphasis on, hey, how hard do you throw? Hey, man, show me that hammer, that 10U hammer. Like, it's just dumb, man. You don't want to be that. I just put the emphasis back on the things that help you win. And being around the plate, you can't defend walks, right? You cannot defend walks. And we're in a game right now, especially at the young levels, where it's like, okay, walk, 3 walks. Okay, we just walked running. Okay, now we made an error. 9 runs later, we're upset. But it's like, dude, if we just pounded the strike zone, we probably would have had a good chance there, right? But no, we want to spend, our whole bullpen session throwing 55 curveballs at 11 years old, which is ridiculous. But anyways, all right, strike percentage, 65% is the goal. Work on it. Chart it, okay? Game Changer allows you to do anything, right? Click of a button, you can find out strike percentage, first pitch strikes, all that stuff. It's there. It's useful, so use it, okay? We definitely do. So within that strike percentage, there's 2 things that are important for me, all right? The first one's going to be your first pitch strike, your first pitch strikes, okay? And we shoot for a goal of 60% first pitch strikes. And here's why. Because what we know is if we throw a first pitch strike, we're going to get an out 80% of the time. We're going to walk a guy 5% of the time. And we're going to give up a hit 15% of the time. Okay. So 60% first pitch strikes should yield you. And if you look at your Game Changer stats for your team, your numbers will probably be very similar to this. If you have a low first pitch strike percentage, the hit percentage is going to go up. Okay. So, I've got some guys on my team currently, they were 55% first pitch strikes, but when they threw a first pitch strike, the hit percentage was 27%. Well, when you're not throwing that many first pitch strike, normally means you struggle with command, which means the balls that you are throwing around the plate normally aren't well located. You're probably having to throw a lot of fastballs, so you do expect that hit percentage to go up. But as guys cross that 60% threshold on first pitch strikes, the number you can expect, 80% of the time you're going to get an out, 15% of the time you're going to give up a hit, and you're going to walk 5% of your guys. Your elite guys would be like 2 to 4%. Your average guys would be 5% as far as the walk goes. Within that first pitch strike percentage, we talk about being positive after 3 pitches, or A3P. And I can't remember who came up with A3P, but it stands for after 3 pitches. And all that means is, I found myself early on as a coach really stressing first pitch strikes and feeling like, okay, we didn't throw a first pitch strike there, so the at-bat's going to be a failure now. And that's not necessarily true, okay, because ultimately where we want to be is in a positive count after 3 pitches, right? And that means ball's either in play in 3 pitches or less, or once that third pitch is thrown, we're in a positive count for the pitcher. All right, you'll hear me say a lot of times if you're a parent, hey, let's be positive after 3. The guy's in a 1-1 count, hey, positive after 3 here. We want to be 1-2 after this. 0-2, 1-2, that's where we want to be after 3 pitches or ball in play. Now, what's interesting about A3P is, at the youth levels, at the high school level, and at the college level, that's positively correlated with lower ERA, lower batting average against, lower slugging percentage, lower on-base percentage, lower OPS, your Ks per game go up. They're correlated. But when you get to the pro game, they don't talk A3P a whole lot because there is no positive correlation there. Like, statistically speaking, like, after 3 pitches is not a clear-cut indicator of success, whereas in the high school game, it's 1,000% something that people look at and say, hey, if he's got an A3P, if his A3P percent is like 70 or greater, or 65 or greater, he's probably pretty good. And that's a fact. So, I just think at the pro game, everybody's just so good that, you see 0-2 pitches, really good 0-2 pitches get hit out of the ballpark all the time at the pro game. So you don't see that a whole lot at the high school game and below. Even the college game. The college game, it's probably less positively correlated there as well. So, if you got questions, let me know, because I know you start this acronym. What was that? What was first pitch strike, A3P? What was that again? Just A3P. We want to be in a positive count after 3 pitches. So that's 0-2, 1-2, or ball in play. That's where we want to be there. So, and that, again, A3P and first pitch strikes, those are correlated with our strike percentage. Or when we start focusing on strikes, those are 2 things that we really hammer home because they're positively correlated with that. Okay. All right, next thing that we want to focus on, next thing that's important for me that we teach is creating tempo. Okay, so if you've listened to my podcast before, I'm very big about the only thing that really changes in this game as you progress through it is the pace of play. The ball gets on you faster, the pitches are thrown harder, the defenders have more range, their arm strength is stronger, so they're going to get the balls faster, and the ball's going to be coming out of their hand harder to make plays. And our job is to work every single day to slow the game down for ourselves while speeding the game up for the other team. If we do that, when the game speeds up, mistakes are made, people aren't at their best, and all that. So it's annoying to me when I watch young pitchers get up there and take 7 days to throw the ball. Then they walk 10 feet down the mound, grab the ball, then they walk 10 feet back, they get on the mound, they shake it off, look off, then they step off the mound, then they get back on the mound. And, it just takes time. Like, it literally should take 13 seconds between ball pitch, call, take a step back, sign, pitch, deliver. We want to create tempo because it speeds the game up for the hitter, okay? When you throw 92, you want the hitter feeling like you throw 110. When you throw 76, you want it to feel like you throw 84. And the way you do that is you create tempo. And tempo is We work at a high rate. We don't slow down. When we get accustomed to working at a high rate in practice and all that other stuff, that tempo becomes normal for us. So again, we don't feel like we're speeding up. We feel like we're working at our normal pace. The game's slowing down, but the hitter's feeling like, golly, he's getting on me really fast. Like, I got 7 in the box, put my hand up, and I mean, you can see it. Like the whole game is like now geared towards pace, 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 pace. So the guys that work with pace do better than the guys that do not. You watch people like Aiden Palmer pitch this year. Like Aiden was coming on you fast because he was working on you fast. Because he's getting ready for the next level where there's pitch clocks. And if you're not on the mound at this time, that's, it's an automatic ball. And well, what do we know? We know if, we're pitching from this type of count versus that type of count, the chances of them getting a hit or getting on base go up, which means their run expectancy goes up and all that. So, that's why creating tempo is important. Your really good pitchers do that. Really good players do that. And like, if I'm a pitcher, I want to be looking at the guy at home plate and seeing his chest going, really breathing hard. He's really laboring at the plate. I don't want to be working fast and seeing the guy at the plate calm, relaxed, working at the same tempo that I'm working at and being comfortable doing it. Because that dude probably rakes. Just being real. And if you're just a casual observer of the game, a casual fan, pay attention to that stuff. Like, look on the mound and see, okay, he's working with good pace. If you're in the stands and it's making you uncomfortable how fast he's working, you can feel it. So then look at your hitter and see, okay, how's he handling that pace? Does he look like he's laboring? Is he looking like he's thinking about the tempo when he gets in the box? Is he holding his hand up constantly to try to get time to slow the game down? If I see that, I know we got that guy, right? And so as a pitching staff, we're going to constantly create tempo and try to push that. And when we practice, we work at a fast pace because, again, you want to make it normal. So for coaches coaching young guys, you're doing yourself a disservice when you allow them to take 40 seconds between pitches. You're doing them a disservice when you allow them to throw a pitch, walk down the hill, catch the ball, walk back, get the sign. No. Deliver the pitch wherever your plant foot, wherever you square, which should be right at, not even at the bottom of the hill, but right where his plant foot lands. Catch the ball, take one step back. Now you're on the mound. Now you're ready to go. There's not enough of that in today's game, especially at the younger levels. But the more normal we make it there, the easier it's going to be for them to transition throughout. So that's that. Okay. The next thing, I got 2 more things. All right. First one, controlling the running game. That's important to me. That's something we absolutely have to focus on. So, being a base running guy, I'm always looking at the whole picture, trying to figure out how we can cheat a couple tenths of a second, because what I know about a couple tenths of a second is it's significant in being safer out. I can think of 100 times over my career as a coach where I've seen a guy get thrown out by a tenth of a second. And I always come back to, how could we have trimmed a tenth of a second off to been safe? And a lot of times it starts with the pitcher, right? It starts with just simply paying attention to the way they move, what their cadence is, looking for the giveaways, looking for the red flags that most high school pitchers give away when they're about to deliver a pitch. They all do it. So when we're coaching our pitchers, we're coaching them on, how can we stay 125 to less than 125 to the plate? So if we're less than 125 to the plate, then a guy's going to have to be if we're less than 125, we give our catcher a little bit of leeway. Well, not catcher, but if you're 125 or less, you got to have a pretty good base runner to be able to swipe that bag at second. If you're over that, things start getting, like, if you're over that for us, unless you've got like a 1-8 guy behind the plate, I feel pretty confident we're going to be able to steal bags on you. I like it when I see guys that are like 1.75 to the plate, and then the pitchers, even if the catcher's 2-0, most of our runners are going to be 3.7 or less by the time they go through our program and get there on their steal start time. So, as we're coaching our pitchers, we're coaching them on those things like, hey, you know, you were 1-3-7 there and our catcher's 2-1. So, you know, 70% of our roster would have been safe if we were stealing there. You know, so helping them understand what that looks like, what 1-2 to the plate feels like, and what 1-7 to the plate feels like, so they can start understanding, okay, when I move this way, I can beat the stopwatch. When I move this way, I can't. And that as we're constantly working and coaching that, when we get into the game, they have an understanding of here's what 1-1 feels like and here's what 1-7 feels like. So I've got to work here, and I'm comfortable working at that pace or, you know, those motions or whatever. That way, in game, when the pressure's cooked up and the lights are on, you know, we're not falling apart mechanically because we're used to working in that within that zone. Okay. A couple other things that we really are big on about controlling the running game. We got to vary our hold times, change our looks. We work to identify the things that our guys give away in their delivery. Okay. That make us susceptible to somebody stealing bags on us. And we point it out immediately every time they do it. Hey, man, you know, before you deliver, your 2 breaths and you go. It happens all the time. Bam, deliver. Or guy on base, 1 look, 2 look, go. Okay, or you rock, or you dip. Or, I mean, we're looking for all those things, and we're always correcting it because when we face a team that gives it away, we're going to take bags, right? And, you know, so it helps us, again, having a good running game helps you to make sure that you're solid at defending the run. So, you know, vary your hold times, change your looks, identify your red flags and your giveaways, and make sure you're working to clean those up. And this is a big one. Coach Brown's really big about working pick plans and pick moves. Okay, got different picks. You start talking pick moves, you might have a bog move, you got a no look move, you got a step ball, you got a bunch of different moves that you work on in practice. Our guys will actually start doing that in September. That way, by the fall, if time the fall gets here, we'll be really good at it. And then pick plans, you know, as this is something we really try to coach hard with because, or coach them hard on, because high school teams give away a lot of what they're doing. If you would just take an extra, like, intentional focus on trying to figure out what they're doing. For instance, guy at second base, 1 out. Okay, like offensively, there I might do a little early, might square early just to see what their defense is doing. Right? Because a lot of times they'll give it away defensively, but as a pitcher, you know, we should go inside move there. You get bases loaded, 2 outs, guy struggling at third strikes, you're going from the stretch. Why don't you do an inside move to see if we can catch somebody there, right? And you don't have to inside move and go, but I mean, you lift your leg up, do an inside move. Now you got everybody off base, you know, committed to the next bag. Maybe you can get an out there without having to throw a strike. So when I say pick plans, what I mean by that is having plans in place to where we can learn something about the offense, or when we're hitting, well, I guess some really pick plans don't work this, but, you know, you can learn something about what your opponent's trying to do, if that makes sense. So, and then the last thing, and then we'll wrap this up, is work from the stretch in practice, okay? Because on May 18th of this year, if we're still playing, and that's the goal every year, you know, our most important pitch of the season is probably not coming from the windup. Okay. So as we're practicing, we'd like to practice with the end in mind. Why would I spend all my time practicing from a low leverage, not important position, right? Not saying throwing from the windup's not important, because it is. You know, when you're in the 7th inning and you're leading by 1 and you're throwing from a windup and you're pitching to the leadoff guy, that's an important moment because we want to keep that guy off base. But my point is, when the pressure's really ramped up, is going to be in the moments where you're throwing from the stretch, where you've got to deliver a pitch in 1-2 or less, to a plus with a plus runner on base to a location, all that other stuff. And you haven't been spending all your time working from the stretch, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And my big thing is, how can we make the uncomfortable comfortable repetition, right? So, Coach Brown's big about making sure our guys work from the stretch on everything we do, because the most important pitches we throw in a season are going to come from the stretch. So, as a coach who's coaching younger guys, how can we better prepare them for later on? Work from the stretch more. Everybody wants to throw from the windup because it's easy. That's a way that we can kind of progress them and push them forward, is, working them from the stretch more often, because, again, the most important pitches of your tournament, the most important pitches of your summer, your season, your whatever, are all going to come from the stretch. So, all right, quick recap. We talked about what's important to us in terms of building healthy arms, your long toss and your throwing programs, your weight and strength, your strength and conditioning programs, your flexibility and stability, and your recovery. All that stuff's really important in terms of building healthy arms. When we talk about building better pitchers and the things that are important to us at Trinity Collegiate, we talked about the strike method, which is kind of our defensive and pitching philosophy within strike. Shutdown inning, 13 pitches or less. Retire the first batter, 1, 2, 3 innings, strikeouts, and end the inning with 2 outs. If you need more information on that, please reach out. Or if you want to hear it straight from the guy who created that system, Coach Justin Deemer, wrote the book One Pitch Warrior. Do a Google search. He can break down his method, his system a little bit better than I can. I've just taken that and worked it, made it our own in certain ways. And that's important. It's something we focus on daily. We focus a lot on your strike percentage. You got to be around the plate. That number, our goal, 65%, right? We believe firmly in pounding the zone, hitting our spots, and letting our defense play. You should too, especially at the younger levels. Let's focus less on 10-year-olds throwing curveballs, okay, and focus more on pounding the zone with our fastball, being able to throw a changeup, and being able to do that 65% of the time. Okay. Within that strike percentage, we focus on first pitch strikes. We want a first pitch strike 60% of the time, because when we do that, we know that 80% of the time that batter is going to be out. 15% of the time he's going to get a hit. 5% of the time we're going to walk that guy. Okay. Within strike percentage, we also talk about being positive after 3 pitches. We shoot for that number 80% of the time, and that just means after 3 pitches, we want to be in a positive count for the pitcher, meaning 0-2, 1-2, or a ball in play. We like to focus on creating tempo. Okay, we want to speed the game up for our opponents. Okay, and the way we can do that on the mound is working at a pace that they're uncomfortable with. Okay, and we do that by delivering our pitch, catching the ball, taking a step back, getting the sign, and going. We don't catch the ball, walk 10 feet, catch it, walk back, look for the sign, step off, get back. That's not good. Okay, we want to speed the game up for the opposing team. We as a pitcher dictate the tempo of the game. Okay, so use that to your advantage. Within practice, get comfortable working with tempo. Okay, it's vital. It's undercoached, underappreciated, but you want to find a way to cruise through the bottom half of most lineups, hit them with tempo. It's amazing what happens, okay? It's amazing what happens when, honestly, you have a good hitter up and you work with tempo, because a lot of times they're not used to working with tempo. Control the running game, vital. If you have a great base running team that you're playing against, they will expose you if you do not control the running game. And you do that by varying your hold times, varying your looks, putting a massive emphasis in practice every day on your time to plate. That is extremely important, undercoached, underthought about, but your time to plate is vital. And, you hear a lot of coaches a lot of times say, give us a chance. You got to be quicker to the plate. Okay, genius. That sounds good, but what are you doing every day to work on that? Are you the guy who's letting your guy go high leg kick every day in in their bullpen session, and then yelling at him on game day when we've stole 10 bags in 4 innings because he's slow to the plate? Like, you got to work on it. You got to fix it when they're not doing it right. It's very easy to stand there. Delivery, catch. 1-7. That's not going to cut it. Delivery, catch. That's 1-2. We can play with that, right? So coach it. Work your picks. Have a plan in place to steal information from the other team with the way you utilize pick moves, right? Know when is a good time to go inside move so we can figure something out about what they're trying to do. Okay, we do it all the time offensively because we're trying to figure out, okay, we're going to throw a little fake bunt in here, figure out what a defense is doing. Okay, all right, on that play, they're crashing here and they're doing that. Okay, and ideally, if you can do it without them throwing a pitch, is even better because then that might change. Okay, hey, they're vacating this. Let's go fake / hit and run here. Whatever. So, you only get there by working those things and being comfortable doing it and understanding. Okay, like your pitcher should be the one who you shouldn't be having to say, hey, this would be a good time to pick, utilize a pick plan here. They should just know. Okay, got to run on second, no outs. Let me go inside move here just to see, what they're thinking. Okay. And then the last thing, work from the stretch. The most important, the only thing I want you to take from this is the most important pitches in your career as a coach, your career as a player, whatever, are going to come from the stretch. No doubt about it. Our most important pitch of the season will come from the stretch. So why don't we treat everything like it's the most important pitch of the season and practice and work from the stretch, right? The more we do that, the better off we're going to be, the more comfortable they're going to be. Okay. And that's it. That's how we build better pitchers. That's what our game plan is. Again, this whole thing was not mechanics focused. This is all mindset and process. Here's the things that are important. Here's the things that we focus on. So many people think that the way to do things is, mechanics. We've got to focus on process. That's all I got. We're going to shut it down. We'll be back next week for another episode. Until then, be cool and go Titans. See ya.